Hello, everyone. It's me, Flint. You know me. I'm a very popular warrant officer on the team called G.I. Joe and its other team called Tiger Force. People like me. And sometimes you know me as a great leader of G.I. Joe. That's why I've got this awesome scar, because I'm cool and getting fights, and I'm brave. Today, I'm here to talk to you on behalf of Krusty Old Crow about the importance of 2ICs. 2IC stands for second in command. Oh, some guys think it stands for second in charge, and they're kind of right, but it's the wrong answer. Uh, and it definitely does not mean somebody who has both of their eyes that can see. That is also the wrong answer. So I'm going to talk about their importance today, and I am going to do a Spec Fire GI Joe classified crow fight between two guys that I think could one of them could be my 2IC. So about 2ICs. Don't you hate it when you grab the wrong guy's rifle and knife on the way out the door? On the way to orders, and your boss points it out in front of all the other officers and warrants in the room, and you get laughed at. And don't you hate it when you go to do an attack on a pumpkin patch, but no one's wearing the right costume? Uniform, and they're all dressed wrong, and you're the only one dressed right, and they laugh at you, and then you're like, but we're never mind. Or don't you hate it when all your guys get along like way too well, and they start getting these like really sick burns on you, and just because you wanted to try something different, and maybe you were just trying to be edgy or whatever, because your wife has started saying things like, "In fact, you wore the same shirt yesterday and the day before that," or she says things like, "Oh, your clothes smell like smoke, Dash. Are you smoking again?" Like she doesn't even know what you do anymore. And anyways, all of these problems get solved when you pick the top two guys and make one of them your 2IC. A 2IC is like a butler with a gun. He gets stuff ready and makes sure troops know when to wake up, brush their teeth, eat a power drink, or complain a quieter until orders, because that's really distracting. And sometimes it makes me a little bit upset before orders, and people laugh at you when you come in the room. This is important because then the guys start ripping on him as much as they do you, and then you can stop eating your lunch in the car. Okay, so what is it I like about 2ICs? I just gave you all the good reasons. Today, I am going to pick a 2IC between two buddies of mine on Tiger Force. It's going to go down to Outback and Recondo. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. All right, guys. Sorry for anyone who really hated that. I just really wanted to try and do that just once. That was something I'm a big Steve Dangle and Maple Leafs fan, right? And Steve Dangle's a very passionate YouTuber who really has a real good grasp on the Leafs, and he's as much their enemy as their fan when it's required. And he pointed out that John Tavares, the Leafs captain, and you guys down south remember him on the Islanders, and I'm sorry for that. He kind of always has one mode in front of the media, and it was always like this mode, right? He always looked like that. And it was always this flat face, and he was very monotone when he talked. And so that's all that was. That was more of a shout out to Steve Dangle and John Tavares. But when I look at Flint, that's what I think of. I think of John Tavares, and it's just like nothing against Flint as a character. I know that's not at all how he was portrayed in the comics or cartoon, but I just pictured what if he had a really bad public speaking ability. Anyways, yeah, so welcome to Spec Fire number 4. Thank you for tagging along. Those of you who joined Specfire, following my other show, Tactical Perspective, and for following along that I've separated the two. That's great. Pardon me while I just move the camera a little bit back. So this is going to be number 4 today. And guys, why are we doing a blue on blue here? A Joe
versus Joe match today. This one was actually suggested from one of the comments on an earlier one from Skullfrog71, and I really appreciated him participating in my amusing fun here that I was having. And he suggested that he wanted to see two of his favorite Joes go at it and see who would get the outcome, the win on that. And he wanted to see Outback and Recondo, and those are two Joes that I really identify well with too. Their jobs kind of fit some stuff I was doing back in the heyday of my career, and I really like it. So and I liked the idea of a Joe on Joe at least once. So I say, yeah, sure, why not? Both guys are on Tiger Force. Yeah, I have the other Outback variant, but I thought this is a Tiger Force Spec Fire, we'll call it. And that bit about Flint, of course, I don't have the Flint variant yet that he so clearly likes himself, but we'll get there one day, maybe. We'll pick that up just to say we're supporting Hasbro the best way we can and completing our Tiger Force collection. Anyways, so how are these fights going? Well, so far the in Spec Fire, I've done 3 matches. The score is 2-1 Joe. We know that Grunt won his match against Firefly on the very first one. And I had Helix over Storm Shadow on the second one. And then Crocmaster over Slaughter. And that was actually the fatal end of Slaughter, because Crocmaster's a very... he's got to feed that gator. You know, so... and I don't think Slaughter brought enough to the table to support anything else. But that was just my apology for getting so dark with that stuff, guys. I just call it some darker influence, but also just trying to keep things a little bit more my perspective on it, right? So, match 2, the Storm Shadow versus Helix match, apparently didn't go the way that Devacism thought at all, and he made a very sound argument in his comment on why he believes Storm Shadow should win. And I realized that, yeah, one of the things I did do is I took Storm Shadow out of the element of surprise and I put him immediately into a pursuit. And that is taking a huge thing away from the lore and tactics of a ninja. In hindsight, you know, that combat between him and Helix probably would have gotten the moment she got to her objective and he was anywhere close to her. It would have been sprung his way and not hers, and I think that would have changed the outcome a bit, but she got lucky on this one, guys. She's on the score sheet. She took the win. I am not reshooting that match. If we want to see Storm Shadow in another match, it'll be against someone else. Same with Helix. But thank you, DMACism, for your continued participation in my stuff, and always with your informative discussion. I always appreciate it. I'm a better person after one of your comments when it comes to this stuff. All right, and like I did say about guys, I am still learning about Helix. I did a lot of assumptions based off what little I was able to read off the file cards and what little information I did glance at. Maybe I overrated her. Okay, anyways, enough about past fights. Let's talk about this fight, why it's happening, and where it's going to go. So for this fight between Recondo and Outback, we're going to have a look at the file cards as per the format of this, and we're going to break this down into our traditional 5 rounds, right? We're going to have that first round of spot and engage. We're going to have that second round of react to the fire, right? Who's shooting at who, what's going on, and we're closing the distance all along. We're going from 500 to 300 at the round 2. We started at 1K out always. Round 3 is going to be the 300 to 100 meter mark. It's going to be called Win the Firefight, but that adapts to depending on the situation and the terrain. It could also be strictly moving in closer with that ability. Who knows? The 4th round is going to be taking the trench phase. This is the one that sees the combatants going from the 100 meter into the close combat phase. And then the 5th round, of course, is going to be the consolidation phase, the consolidation round. Any special stuff that's going to happen with regards to unique kit, unique character benefits, that's going to come into play. And also coming into play is whether that character, not the victor, but the one that doesn't win, whether they survive the outcome, whether it's a fatality, a survival, an escape, a rescue, or a let go. You know, what happens there depending on the character and the situation they're in, right? One of the things about the whole Joe thing is they always tamed him down for the cartoons and the comics. You have to think about the roles of these guys and some of the darker stuff. And yeah, I'm going to get a little grim. Guys, I'm a 25-year combat arms vet. People we'll do this. We're the terrible people that you can't sit through a war movie with because we're pointing out all the flaws in the realism, right? So just remember, these are always for fun and never a criticism on Hasbro or anybody who has a differing opinion on a character here. And this one is for fun. So where do I want these guys to start today? Easy. We're going to put them in their element. They're going to be on a Joe exercise in the jungles somewhere in, we'll say, Brazil. The objective they had was to go find a shack and retrieve some evidence from that shack that links that that the local drug cartels are in fact funding the Crimson Guard, or at least supplying them with stuff. So their terrain that they're working with is a lot of this stuff, right? So each of them had their own separate route up where they were going and back. Recondo's was to the right and Outback's to the left. Pay no attention to the names. It's just an example of what a map might look like with regards to understanding that these guys took separate routes to the objective. And once at the objective, they did the usual clover leafing it, fully defining it, getting a count of who's there, defining everything, taking sketches, photos if you could, just getting to know the full objective well. And as they were breaking back and making their way to their ORV, they were halted short, organized rendezvous for those of you curious. They get halted short by a secret communique to each other, to them respectively. Remember, they're moving separately through the jungle, and it's an explanation that they are now in direct competition with each other. There's only one seat on the hovercraft down at the river that they're on their way to, and that seat is for the first person that gets there. The second person that gets there is to be executed or left for capture. Remembering that it's just a scenario, these guys are armed with simunition, which is simulated ammunition. It leaves a mark when you get shot. It's almost like paintball, but it's a little bit more painful, I guess, at certain ranges. They've got the simunition in their weapons to reflect the way the bullets are going to go. And they've got, let's say, shock knives. Just a little electrical charge that lets you know when you've been tagged by a knife, right? For whatever that is, right? Okay, so we've got that, and we've got an order that they cannot drop their backpacks until they actually are at the boat. The backpack has the intel, and it has to come with them, right? So, and we'll say the intel isn't something they can carry in a pocket. It's something that has to be carried on their back, like a hard drive set and stuff. Okay, whatever. You understand where I'm going with it. Okay, so what would happen in phase one? So in phase one, we got the engagement phase. It's going to happen at 1,000 meters to 500 meters. Okay, remembering that we are dealing with undulating and dense terrain of a jungle forest. Oh my gosh. Are you guys okay? These guys are okay. I just reached for something. That's all I made the mistake of doing. You know me, I'm not the expert YouTube guy. I am the sometimes fun to watch, sometimes painful and taxing to watch older guy with a weird perspective. Anyways, just to remind you about that terrain that we're talking about, a lot of dense trees. Yeah, there's going to be little hidey holes and clopses to hide in, but little trails and clearances and things like that. This is all going to be considered when these guys do the first move. Oh, and there's the river there along, and that's where the hovercraft is going to be parked waiting for one of them. You can see that there's clearings on either side. Anyways, what's the first thing these guys are going to do? Well, being good jungle and surveillance and recce and intel soldiers that they are, they're first going to do a quick map recce and estimate to figure out quickly where they exactly are. But more importantly, like, they know exactly where they are, but they're going to quickly have a look at their route, right? Back to the hovercraft. They're going to look at the terrain they're dealing with, and they're going to wonder what's the most expedient. But that's not the biggest concern. Right now, when they went into that mission, they knew exactly where they were. They were teammates, and so they knew Outback knew Recondo's route, Recondo knew Outback's route to the objective. When they took over their respective sides of the objective, and when one of them went in or both of them went in and got the stuff, and they went back their respective ways, they knew about each other. However, when they got to a certain point on their trace afterwards and on their way back to the ORV, they got that message, right? So now they're opposing forces, and Recondo's got to figure out which way Outback is going to go to that boat, because he's got to beat him there. Outback's doing the same for him. And they're considering things like where on the map does it look like they're going to have open views of the other guy's route? Because they know that, Recondo was to the east, Outback's to the west. So he's studying and he's seeing where those two people can see each other on the way down, where fire could come into effect, things like that. So they're going to start taking off as soon as they get that estimate, and they're going to adopt their plan as they go. They have no terrain concerns here. All right. And I'll explain why. Well, I shouldn't say no terrain concerns. Nothing overly detrimental. There is one, and I will address it. If we have a look, let's start head to toe here. The hat's not going to slow them down. I'm going to get right into the rifles for a second. Okay, so if we have a look at Recondo's FN style rifle, we do see that it is a longer rifle than Outback's A1 type carbine. Okay. But it does have a collapsible buttstock. It has been scrimmed up, so it is good for the environment. It's not good for the environment for recycling, but good as in breaks up shape, form, and therefore gives him that extra a little bit of camouflage for his gun. And it's a manageable weapon. It doesn't have a whole lot of attachments you have to worry about or anything like that. No extra handle hanging off of it. No mag lights. No EOTech scope. It's a strict iron sight weapon. All right, that depends. You'd think that's a disadvantage for some guys, but some guys shoot better with iron sights when they have time to take the shot. Right? Is it a quick battle sight? Yeah, it's a quick battle sight, and there are better battle sights out there for rifles. But you got to figure this is what's working for Recondo. So is it going to snag on trees and get bumped around and things like that and slow him down? No, because he's used to handling it. He knows how to carry it. I just have it represented on his pack in there. But he would cradle this gun in certain ways as he navigates certain obstacles, right? And one of the obstacles these guys have to consider, especially with Outback here, is dense terrain, right? Where in the map can they spot the difference between a wider spread of trees and the most dense clops of trees? That's going to affect how they're planning their route, right? Because is it going to be speed over security here, or security over speed? In this case, it's speed over security. It's about getting back to that boat. So they're going to be wanting to move as swiftly as possible. Outback's backpack is the thing that's slowing them down a little bit. It's a bigger backpack. It's got more mass and more weight to it. It's got balance point for him when he's climbing and things like that. So that might slow him a little bit depending on what terrain he approached to get through. But he's a warfare specialist when it comes to the jungle and dense terrain and things like this. So I think even with that backpack, it's a negligible factor because he knows where he's walked and where he's going to go in a forest. He knows how to go organically with the forest, just as well as Recondo does with the kit he's coming with. So we have a draw in that first round. They are aware of each other, but the density of the forest will keep them from doing that shooting at over 500 meters. At this point, we'll say to move this we'll go into round 2, which is the react to fire part. All right, and as I pick up the other prop box for this from earlier fall, I'll just get my points for that round. Okay, so in this point, yeah, those weapons are going to come into play again at this point. And so I'm going to have another look at the weapons, the backpacks, everything I talked about that. Let's talk about the camo. At this point, both men have an advantage with camo, right? If he sits in high tree shade and tucked back in the tree line, I'm talking about Recondo here. If he sits far enough in that high tree line, his darker forest camouflage makes a bit of sense. And the light, this is where light would strike if tree shade was coming this way, right? If I had a shady tree, there's the shade, and the sunlight going down would strike around the low region where the grass would be. So his camouflage makes sense. Trying to sell a Tiger Force camouflage, this is equally valuable, but for a different time of day. This is around the noonday when the sun's coming down through the canopy of a forest or a jungle. This muted orange actually works with the top of a lot of jungle tree leaves and things like that. So it's a draw on the camouflage issue completely, only because we aren't going to differentiate the time of day. We will say that they have picked their terrain accordingly again. However, when it comes to the weapons, there is a decisive smaller advantage here, and it is coming back to the ability for him to put this up on a shoulder against a rock, get a really good aimed shot off, but he is restricted with that iron sight. Whereas Outback's more mobile and more compact A1. I look at this as a C8 variant. That's what we have in Canada. It's C8. He's dropped that buttstock off. So this is a close quarters suppression fire weapon. It's not meant for the ranges of trench to trench warfare. It's meant for the ranges of uptight and personal, under 100 meters, maybe under 200 meters best. He does have a more advanced sight, but he doesn't really have the ability to put this in his shoulder, and therefore his stance and technique are really dependent on what he can do with his upper body and breathing, right? So I think in that case, at that particular range, it's really Recondo with the advantage as far as the rifle goes at that range. But he's not going to take a time to wait for this guy to cross over possibly on what he analyzed on the map. He's going to keep moving because that's the objective. So in phase 2, we have another draw, the react enemy fire at this point, because we've got a race going. There is no enemy fire, okay? But phase 3, the win the firefight phase, the part where we get 300 meters and into up to 100 meters is where things start to take a little bit more of a turn. Okay, when it comes to winning the firefight, you got to picture that these guys are now going crack, 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 back and forth with each other. His sight is meaning that at 300 meters down, it's a quick little red dot sight or ACOG sight that he's got in there. It's in the weapon's effective range, regardless of its design. In fact, two-hand support allows him to do a lot of 3-round bursts or full auto if he wanted. Both men have a few mags on them. This fight's going to go on for a little while from tree, go to a tree, fire a few shots, go to a tree, fire a few shots. And they're doing that from 300 meters to close quarters. So they're going to go through a few mags doing successive bounds here, right? And so that's how we shrink it down. So who gets the firefight at closing that distance with each other? So what did I say for winning the firefight here? I think it comes down to a veteran trick at this point, right? So the weapon loadout is evenly enough matched that nobody's going to pull out a Gatling gun here or launch a grenade out of an M203 attachment. Nothing's been represented on these boxes that way, right? And so when we get into what advantage you have, it goes to Recondo, and I think it comes down to the Bugs Bunny maneuver. What's the Bugs Bunny maneuver for the younger guys? They might not know. And I laugh because my buddy did this in Afghanistan in his tank with his helmet against an unseen Taliban gun nest, and it actually worked. So we called it the Bugs Bunny maneuver. That was it again, guys. The guy you met in the Crimson Bat video. But the Bugs Bunny maneuver is essentially exactly what most of you might think, and what I just described, where you use your hat as a decoy. And we're not saying it's the most convincing thing, right? But I see a trick where, say Recondo was by a fallen log with overgrowth and leaf and moss and whatnot, and he knew he was within 100 to 150 meters, and maybe he suspected that the clearing ahead of him was a trap set, or he had heard something that did that. He might do this with the hat and just sit off maybe a foot or two in cover behind it just to see what it gets. Again, spec fire. See if spec fire is laid, see if it convinces him, see if he can hear somebody try to flank around and then ambush him, right? So a trick like that might have benefited Recondo for a second, or it might not have. A guy like Outback might know all those kind of tricks, and he might say, no, not falling for it. I know that trick, right? So, where are we here? We're in phase 3 still. all it would really be effective to do, and honestly what I think the intent of doing a trick like that would do, was maybe get him to burn a little bit of ammo and expose his muzzle flash of his of his rifle, if he was out there, for him to know exactly where he was and maybe launch a counter, right? So that would be the only advantage to winning a firefight, where I would give Recondo a slight edge, and I'm not really factoring it in. I'm considering that more of the draw, because it's a gimmick. In every way, these guys are evenly matched up till close combat. And that's where and I'm not talking about evenly matched as in conventional warfare. They went into this going together. In a battle, like a dire last minute battle, these guys are evenly matched up till we get to the next round here, which is going to be round 4. Round 4 is where the advantage shifts. Recondo has been moving lighter. He's got better with the range, but both men have been more than easily matched. Any advantage Recondo has had over Outback, or Outback over Recondo at this point, has been pretty negligible. The training's been the same. The veteran experience, you would have to imagine, be the same. But we get into this clandestine operations, and may or may not, and this accountability with him. I feel like we are dealing with more of a killer when we get under the into the round 4. So when we get to the 100 meters, and things are going to get nastier, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's look at close combat weapons for a second, and let's give Recondo the focus he needs. That I think it's called kukri, the Gurkha knife. All right. That is basically a little smaller than a machete, but the same essential concept. It's a hacking and slashing knife more than a stabbing knife. It's got a lot of weight and shape to it for a downforce cut. It could take it could go through bone in a single slice. It could do that stuff. It's a very brutal knife in a knife fight. And it can block and parry, right? Because it has size to it. His pistol is a confusing one for me, because it's just a small little 9mm, I think 6 Sauer or something. It's a very small, compact pistol. It's very close quarters pistol, and it's a low punch. But he can keep this tight to the body and keep a controlled shot very easily because of its size. I can't imagine the recoil being a lot for that little compact thing when he's got it tucked into his triangle form and ready to go close combat like this. Here's where all the coolness doesn't matter, because this is where the clandestine operations and modern experience and modern tech alleviates it, and a little bit of traditional know-how. So these guys get into close combat, and Recondo's all set. He's got the knife drawn, he's got the pistol, he's waiting for him to step into the clearing, right? But both men are now moving stealthily through the jungle, moving from tree to tree, just trying to get the right position on each other before one of them hits the other with a knife, right? They're both going to move quietly. Trying to line up a shot for Recondo is going to be a game of patience. For Outback, it's a game of maneuvering and just waiting, because he's got the red dot sight with his pistol. So with that, he's getting an aim assist at a chance close contact, a chance opportunity, a moment. Yeah, you can drop your pack now. You're at the boat. A chance with that gun is a better chance with that gun because of that red dot sight and just that opportunity. However, it's a two-way street. If he activates the red dot sight and he's not right, he's also drawing a complete line to his position as well, right? So it's a give and take, but in the end, we get in there, and I would have to think that Outback would get a shot off that would probably clip Recondo in the shoulder somewhere. Shoulder or center of mass. And I say that only as, and I'm giving it the shoulder because center of mass could be fatal. Neither guy's wearing the body armor, and you'd have to say that was a kill shot if it was in the chest. But we'll say it glances the shoulder just so we can move into the end of the fight. when it comes to close quarters fighting, yeah, okay, we'll say the shoulder injury may affect a little bit of his style, but it's going to come down to brutality. And this is where Outback has the edge. Outback has an illusion of survival. It's whatever you take. You saw the acronym. When it comes to survival, you accept no substitute but the everything it takes, and it's dump everything you have into the enemy, fight dirty, fight to the end, bite, punch, kick, pull the hair, kick them in the balls, shoot them in the balls, whatever it takes to pardon my language, to win that enemy and go home successful with your mission. That is taught to him, and it's been alluded that he's been doing it in clandestine operations for a while. We don't have that kind of a read on Recondo. And really, the idea of a int guy in the jungle is the same as a recce. That int is what they bring to the table, not combat experience. They get the information others would love to have because they are really good at gathering it and avoiding compromising it once it's had. So the focus on him being more about int and him being about survival is where this knife fight gets nasty. Pistols aside, once they get in, you've got a clubbing effect and a slashing effect and a hacking effect. You also have a blocking effect for either, let's say. He's willing to take it off the wrist. Same thing here. Clubbing effect, blocking effect, stabbing, slashing, closer range. But the stabbing is going to be more a process with this knife. You're more used to stabbing with a survival knife than you are with a kukri, let's say. Regardless, I think that's my opinion coming into play again. What else? Well, this is where Outback gets one last advantage. Let's say the pistols get disarmed, and it's just knife on knife, okay? Or just no pistols allowed. This entrenching tool is very much a weapon that Outback would be reaching for after the pistol ceased its proper use and effect, or like desired purpose. He would be at an advantage fighting Recondo with an entrenching tool and the knife in close combat. Having something to block the Gakari blade or the kukri there, and then having something to thrust and slash against a open arm block is going to wear him down, and he is going to lose that battle in close combat weapons. Okay, that's just my opinion. I think at some point, this combination here of the entrenching tool and the combat knife sees this disarmed, sees him surrendering or worn down at some point. He's going to get shocked a lot. He's going to get shocked a lot, but I think he'll persevere through. I think his training and his regiment and what he's been through, his threshold for getting on that boat and getting in that chair, and taking off and leaving someone behind is a lot more than what Recondo would have for a threshold for. So that's my opinion, guys, and that's the fight. Special thanks again to Skullfrog71 for participating with this in the comments. I'm going to throw together some more, but if anybody else has any other comments that would lead to a fight that you want to see here on Specfire, G.I. Joe Classified Crow fights, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and throw something together. I've got enough Joes. There are some key ones I'm missing, guys. We don't have Beachhead. We don't have an Alley Viper. We don't have Major Blood. We don't have Dr. Mindbender. But we've got a lot of everybody else. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. I don't really care where this goes. I'm just keeping things amusing for me and the people that are like-minded like me. If that is you and you like that video, hit that like. If I just described you to a T and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead, subscribe. I'll appreciate you the same way I appreciate every one of the subscribers I have right now. And that's a lot, guys. That's a lot coming from me. And thank you again for taking the time to watch my videos. I know I'm a long-winded old fool with a lot of ramblings, but some of you seem to be at peace with it, and I certainly am too. Otherwise, I'd stop making these. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again. Bye.